Thank you everybody for joining in. My name is Irina. For those who don't know me, I'm part of the Get Your Guide team, part of the team that uh, builds this creator community and creates also hopefully very good value for all of you here. Today, I'm very excited to have Emilie Cooper for a very exciting event. So up until now, most of you know that we've been doing different kinds of events. One of them has been the workshops where we always invite a macro creator to share their know-how with us, usually through a presentation. And we've heard the feedback from you guys. You mentioned that you kind of don't enjoy the format as much because you don't get to ask as many questions. So this time around, we decided to try a different version. And instead of doing a classic presentation type of keynote event, we decided to do like a Q&A event. So I asked you beforehand to submit questions that you would like to talk or ask Emilie, all around how to optimize Instagram for more efficient growth. So we collected all of these questions. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask all these questions that you guys have shared with us. And Emilie is going to share as much of her secrets so we can learn how to do things ourselves. Meanwhile, while we kind of have this discussion, you can still use the Q&A chat on the bottom. So there's one general chat where you can talk to each other, and then there is another chat called Q&A where you can add any questions that you might have during the discussion. So whenever at any point of the discussion you think of something that is not clear or something additional that you want to ask, pop them in the Q&A channel, and then I'll leave 20 minutes after we've gone through the pre-made question list to ask anything else that's missing. So add them there and I'll read them out to Emilie, and we'll make sure to cover as much ground as we can. Awesome. Well, to not ramble too much, I would love to get things started, and I would love to invite Emilie to share a bit about her own journey. So, Emilie, will be awesome if you can tell us a bit more how you started on your Instagram journey, how you kicked things off, and your content career path, and what inspired you actually to go on that journey.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hello everyone. I'm super excited that you're all here. And I always like to start off my own classes with a congratulations because I like to congratulate you for showing up and being here. You're already making the right moves. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, my journey, a little crazy. So I did the very traditional route. I went to college. I got my master's degree in a field called public health. I was a chronic disease epidemiologist. I worked for 4 years in a government hospital. And then during COVID, we were all home sitting around. And I was like, you know what? I really want to take time to travel. I was watching a lot of YouTubers. If you guys are into vlogging and stuff, I was watching a lot of travel vloggers. And I was like, this is so amazing. I don't know anybody that does this. I've always had this passion for travel, and I've never had that chunk of time to be able to take off and explore the world. So I decided I was going to do this career break, plan for this career break, 6 month career break. I was going to travel Southeast Asia, and I was going to explore all the countries and like get travel out of my system, go back to work. We all kind of know that drill. So because the pandemic, was going on for a little bit longer than we thought, I actually was able to save a bunch of money and travel for a full year. So I started this journey in July of 2020. That was when this plan came about. And I officially quit my job in April of 2022. In the middle of that time, I started an Instagram account from the time that I was supposed to leave for my trip. And I created it just as a place to show my friends and family, what I was doing on my travels. I saw a few people, had these travel Instagrams, and I thought it was cool. I really didn't think anything of it. My first couple posts were me like eating pasta and like going on a hike, nothing crazy at all. And then I started learning a little bit more about how people were able to monetize these. And at first, I really didn't even know they were making money, but I heard people were, staying in places for free or traveling for free. And I thought, well, that was really cool. If I could extend my trip for a little bit longer, maybe I should actually try to grow this and learn even more about making money and partnering with different brands. So I just went full in. I started, making, taking courses and making more content and doing it a bit more consistently. And everything just kind of took off from there. And then here I am, over 2 years later, I have been doing this as a full-time career. I have exceeded my income from my 9 to 5 job. So I just couldn't be happier with how everything has turned out. And I'm super excited to share any knowledge that I can with all of you guys. So.
That's great to hear. Thanks so much for also taking the time to share so much with us. I want to start from a bit of like a maybe starting point. So you've grown your account to 125K followers. You're now a full-time creator. You've reached those milestones to actually be able to now thrive. But I assume at the beginning, especially, it wasn't as fluffy as it seems when going back, you kind of showcase how much you've gone through to get where you are now. So, could you share some key milestones or turning points in your Instagram career journey? What have been some struggles? What have been kind of the moments that you really felt like you took the next step, and how did it feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think starting was the first biggest step, and I went into it without a ton of expectations. And I think that was really good for me. I didn't go into it being like, I want this to be my full-time job. I have to be a full-time creator. I didn't put all of that pressure on myself because if I did have to go back to a 9 to 5 at some point, I was okay with that. So it really was just for fun in the beginning. So I think it's really, really important to go into it without having it doesn't have to be perfect, just starting to post. So that was really pivotal for me, just getting my content on the platform. And then I had to learn it. I was really bad for a little while, of course. I was learning reels. I had like all the text overlapping each other. One of my first reels was just like chickens running around. So you just have to like be bad with it, and that's okay. So I was really just throwing out and posting a lot of random stuff in the very beginning. And then what really took a turn for me, what really helped me excel, was I actually got a one-on-one coaching session with an Instagram coach. And so she was able to sit down with me and explain what was actually working on Instagram, how, why people followed you, and just the things that I didn't know because I hadn't even been on Instagram previously. I deleted all my social media accounts. So I really had to relearn Instagram. I had to learn things like hooks and, reels and backgrounds and all of audios, all of that different kind of stuff. And that was really, really helpful for me to kind of just like compartmentalize what was going on. So I came up with different pillars that I was going to be talking about. I really found the community that I wanted to talk to instead of doing like food reviews and in reviews. I found my niche, which was going to be solo female travel on a budget because that's what I was doing to prep for my year-long career break. And I was talking about tips and tricks. So that really, really helped me getting onto my account and telling to start growing was massive for me. And then I just took that advice and I did it consistently. I was posting 7 days a week in the beginning. I was coming up with content ideas. I was batching my content and I grew very quickly from there. I hit about 10,000 like a few months later and then 20,000 like a few months after that. So it was definitely me just taking the time to really know who I was trying to talk to, really know my own voice, and then doing that consistently, even in the beginning when you don't always see those results. But that was huge for me.
How do you plan your content strategy now? I assume at the beginning, you kind of, as you mentioned, you just need to start. So you share a lot of different things to learn what your voice is and what makes sense and what helps you grow. At this point, like, how do you plan out what you want to post and which elements do you consider when planning your content strategy?
Mhm. So during this time when I was posting like very, very consistently. I was filming with like a matte background. If anyone's been following me since the matte background days, definitely put it in the chat. So that was really helpful for me. So I would actually film a whole month of content or at least 2 weeks of content during that time with my matte background. So it was a mix of my personal ideas that I had and some type of like trending audio or trend that was going on. So I would do a mix of those and I would film all of that and I would have 2 weeks or even a month of content that I would have and be able to post. Now I do a little bit of a mix of batching content. So anytime I'm traveling, I have my own personal travels. At the end of the day, I really do try to put a video together if I have an idea in my mind because I don't want to lose all of that content in my camera roll. I think anybody who knows if you're a creator, you have so much content in your camera roll, you try to organize it the best way that you can, but sometimes those ideas get lost. So if I'm traveling, I have a specific idea that I'm filming for it. I try to create it at the end of the day and just leave it in my drafts. I also always have a notes app on my phone. And anytime I come up with an idea, sometimes this can be like 2 a.m. at night, I'll just go in and I'll type it in my notes app. So I have a full list of content ideas that I can put together. I also save different reels and inspiration into a folder in my Instagram. So if I see someone that has, some type of trend that they created, and I thought, oh wow, I could really create this for my own audience and do my own spin on it. I'll save that. I'll put that into my folder. Same thing with any other little pieces of inspo that I have. So I have so many content ideas, and then I either take the time to sit down one day of the week to put all of the videos together and then do the captions, or I will create those videos at the end of the day if it's something where I'm out and about. But a lot of the times I try to film or try to create a lot of content that's B-roll. So that means it could be me walking on the beach, that could be me drinking a coffee, that could be me, showing a beautiful surrounding with myself in it. And those you can have so that you can put them into videos and just do some type of voiceover, or you can do, some type of tip or trick about travel or whatever your niche is. So that's really, really helpful as well. And I always try to put that into a folder on my account. So definitely having some type of batching. You never want to leave your draft completely empty because if you're trying to post and your drafts are empty, it's almost like having a blank page when you are trying to write. And it's like just so stressful. So at least throwing something together, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can work on it later. So I never have an empty drafts folder on my Instagram. And I think that has really helped me for sure.
Awesome. What are some techniques that you have used to increase engagement apart from kind of planning out the content? Do you use any kind of, especially at the beginning, like when you're starting out, like have you used any kind of Instagram tooling or any kind of tips and do you have any kind of tips and tricks to make sure that your engagement grows?
I think at the beginning, I was definitely making sure I was engaging a lot with other creators. And I think people always say, like, engage with other creators in your niche. I don't think it has to be like that at all. I think you're just engaging with other creators that you feel like you're drawn to in some way, obviously making it authentic, not just leaving like a random heart on their post, but like saying something of substance. So making sure that you're doing that external engagement as well is going to be important. Um, and then also asking questions within your content, within your reels. I've noticed that a lot of the times I always ask a question at the bottom of my caption so that my audience was able to have something to go off to be able to engage with my own content. And I found it really beneficial to also say it in the reel or post it in the reel because some people don't even read captions anymore. Or if it's a post, obviously say it in your post. You could even put it in the first line of your post because if people are scrolling, especially on the Reels tab, that first line is the only thing that they see. So if somehow you can incorporate, a question or something in there to get people engaging in your content. But if your content is something that's like unique or, different in some way, all people are going to start engaging with it anyway. But what's really working right now on Instagram is definitely having people share your video. So that's when that unique content, something that's like a really, juicy location that you've been to that no one has ever seen before, or it's a really, really great tip that no one's ever heard before. That's like that share worthy content. So they're either sharing it with friends and family, they're sharing it on their stories. And that's super, super important for you to get those shares. Not all of your content has to be share worthy. You don't want to be like, oh my God, is someone going to share this? But once in a while, thinking about those kind of things, that's really going to help your audience engage. But you can obviously say, comment, share, save. You can absolutely tell your audience to do those things as well to engage. You want to have some type of call to action. I also, right now, I wasn't using this in the beginning, but I use a program called ManyChat. So this is an AI automated system, and I use this to get people to my newsletter or to send various links. So maybe I stayed at a gorgeous location and people want to know what this is, they can just comment and it will automatically DM the link to that location. So people do that with their blog posts, people do that to get people on their email newsletters. There's a lot of different ways that you can use it, but this has been really, really helpful as well to get that engagement.
How do you balance between all the content formats that are available on Instagram? Because it feels like there's a lot more than, for instance, on TikTok, you kind of focus on reels. Here you have stories, you have carousels, you have posts, you have different types of also features you can use on each different content format. So how do you make sure you still comply to kind of Instagram's variety of content, but also how
Mhm.
do you not get then overwhelmed with so much choice and so much to do at the end of the day?
Yeah. So when I was first starting out, I had a very structured week for myself, especially because I was still working my 9 to 5 when I first created my Instagram account. So I had to be very structured in what I was doing. So I was posting 2 carousels a week. So a carousel post is a swiping post with photos. And then I was posting four 2 carousels, 4 reels, and then 1 static post. And that was more of a personal post. And then I was going live every single week to talk about a various topic. And I was sharing to my stories every single day. I don't think you need to be doing this much right now. If that seems super, super overwhelming, you don't have to do that. If you are trying to grow your account, I would say try to at least post 3 times a week. That is great, great, great place to start. You don't have to post 7, but the more you post generally, the more that you are going to grow. So that was the kind of schedule that I had for myself. Once I started getting more things to do outside of social media, I decreased that a bit and I really found what works for me. So for me, I really feel like I can share a lot of value and also really show my personality when I'm creating reels. And thankfully for me, reels have the best reach and they have the best opportunity for you to grow and reach your own audience as well. So now I'm really focusing on those reels and they're just really fun for me to create. I really like creating reels anyway. So reels are my main priority. And then I will also do some type of carousel posts, which again are the swiping posts, multiple photos. For anytime I feel like I really want to connect with my own audience, because unless they're being shared, that reach isn't always going to get you the reach like it will with like a reel. So the carousel posts generally you're not going to see them as much in, it doesn't have its own feed like a Reels tab. You could get discovered on the Explore page, but it has to have a ton of engagement from your current community. But what's really great about them is that they'll show twice on your feed. So if your audience doesn't interact with them the first time, they're going to show that post to your audience again. So if there's something you really want to get forth to your audience, that's a really great way to do it is by posting a carousel post, because if they don't engage or if they for some reason they don't see it, will show to your community again and it will show that second slide. Lives is a really great way for you to connect with your audience even further. And it's definitely really great if you have something to sell. So maybe you're launching a group trip or you have some type of affiliate program that you're working on, that is really, really great for you to do lives. Once you're getting a little bit bigger, I've noticed for me, I get a lot of trolls when I go live. So I don't do it as much anymore. But when I had a smaller community, I really, really loved going live. So you can definitely play around with it. It's not as scary as it seems, I promise. You get the hang of it. Just think of it as a little chat time. I'll usually do it when I'm like packing a bag or something like that. And then stories, I love posting stories like at least a few times a day. And this is the best way for you to share more about your life and get really connected with your audience. So just share what's going on in your day. I try to always share like a little schedule of what I'm doing that day. And so people get to see, oh, well, she's working on this, or she has this partnership that she's doing, or okay, then she goes to the gym and she's reading this book. And I usually get a ton of engagement on those because people will be like, oh, you did this workout video, like I've done this workout video, or I'm reading that book, or I loved that book. So I usually get a ton of engagement on those stories, which I really like. So you can share more than the niched kind of community that you are trying to foster like on your feed. So stories are definitely important there as well. So I would say definitely focusing if you're trying to grow on the reels and on the stories. But if you are trying to engage more with your audience and kind of grow that and foster that community, lives and those carousel posts, you can absolutely incorporate those as well.
What is your opinion on the Instagram algorithm? There's always a different kind of thought on how it works and what creators should follow. Based on your experience, what are some ways to work with the algorithm to increase reach and visibility? And also, how much attention should creators pay on how the algorithm works and changes?
So I actually never really pay attention to the algorithm, and I don't think you should spend so much time learning about it because people are like, "Oh, the algorithm changed today. The algorithm has been changing." The algorithm is changing like by the minute, and everybody has their own algorithms. It's this web that we will never be able to understand unless you are a part of it. So there are a few tips and tricks that I still continue to use. Does that mean you absolutely have to use them? No, it doesn't. But there are a few tips and tricks that still seem to be beneficial, at least for me. So for me, it's having your stories expire. So not posting a story for 24 hours and having it expire and then posting a new story. And if you do post a new story, having it be some type of question box, or you can do a poll, and having this right in the beginning, have your stories expire and posting that story with some type of interactive feature. This is actually going to show to increase story views. And I have done this many times, and this definitely is true. Your story bubble will pop up more on your audience's feed when you're doing that. So that's a little story algorithm trick. Definitely having in that poll there is a nice bonus as well. And then when it comes to content, like we talked about, Reels is just what's being pushed out right now still. So using Reels features, if there's any new feature that has come out, definitely try to incorporate it. So when collaborations came out, trying to collab with another creator so that you can both have, your tags on the top of the reel. When templates came out, using different templates or allowing people to create templates with the reel that you have used. Using trending audio, this definitely still seems to be beneficial for a lot of people, using a trending audio that's less than 10,000 uses. But again, not having it be so strict where you're like, oh my goodness, now this audio isn't trending anymore. Now I can't use it. Now I can't post this video. No, definitely still post the video. I've had a lot of viral videos that have not been trending audio, but I've also had viral videos be trending audio. So you can see, if you guys aren't sure, you can see it's trending audio because there'll be a little arrow that's pointing up, and you can actually find what is working best for you and your niche within the algorithm and on Instagram. If you go to your professional dashboard, which is if you go to your profile, there'll be a little professional dashboard button. I don't know if you can see that. And then there'll be a little tab that says inspiration. So it will say your tools inspiration. You can actually click on that and you can see which trending audio it suggests for you and your niche. It will also give you real inspiration, and it will also give you some accounts that they think that you might like or find inspiration from. So Instagram's really telling you exactly what it thinks like you should do. It's giving you those recommendations. So it's good to take those into consideration for sure. Again, it's not like, oh my gosh, they gave me this trending audio. I have to use this trending audio. It's not like that, but it does make it a little bit easier, especially if you're looking for that inspiration and those kind of tips and tricks.
What is your opinion on hashtags? They seem to play quite a significant role in discoverability. It seems like Instagram is also pushing a bit more towards functioning a bit in line of kind of how Google uses SEO. Do you use hashtags? Do you research hashtags? How do you, if you do, how do you kind of maximize your content reach to them?
So I actually have not used hashtags in probably about a year and a half, especially when topics came out. I'm not sure if everybody across the globe has access to topics, but topics basically once you create a post, you'll scroll down below and there'll be a little section that says topics, and then you'll be able to touch up to 3 categories. So now I don't use hashtags unless I'm working on a partnership and I need to have those hashtags included in my posts. I will use the topics now, and then I also make sure I'm using keywords in my captions, in my reels. That's going to allow for that search engine optimization. Not saying you can absolutely still use hashtags. I would not think too much about it, like using 30 or using 5. Like I would say 5 is definitely a good amount, and you're going to want to use hashtags that using some type of location, using some type of explanation about what it's about, your your topic pillars. So if you're or your audience that you're looking to, so if it's solo female travelers, doing a hashtag for solo female travelers, a lot of these are going to be really, really high. So doing a mix of like those higher hashtags and hashtags that don't have so many people have used them. But I will say if you're trying to work with different brands, hashtags, I have had brands find me through hashtags. So I'm don't think they're the best. I wouldn't really put them into play for like growth and growing my community and growing my social media, but I have had brands find me through hashtags. So if you're doing some type of post where maybe you are doing a different, like you're showing a luggage, maybe having some type of hashtag for like luggage or, best luggage for solo travelers or something like that, it is possible that brands can potentially find you through there. So don't spend too much time on it. Don't stress over hashtags. You can definitely see things that are trending or what other creators are using. But I would say if you have the topics feature, that's going to be a little bit more top of mind, plus using those keywords that you want your ideal audience to be searching when they're looking for that video.
That's very interesting. I know that topics have not rolled out everywhere. We don't have them in Germany. I think in Europe they're not there yet. I'm hoping that they'll pop out soon. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting way or approach to go at figuring out how to make your content be seen instead of
Mhm.
using hashtags. I feel like hashtags are also becoming a bit more uh old.
Yes, for sure. I kind of forget about them sometimes.
I totally get you. On another note about like, because we've talked a lot about like what type of content you would share, what type of tricks and tricks you would use to try and optimize for reach and engagement. But how do you track all of that performance? Which analytics and metrics do you focus on to measure the success of your Instagram efforts? How do you use that data to inform your next decision, your strategy overall? How do you go about it all?
I definitely try to, I don't look at my analytics every single day. I think that can be a bad headspace for a lot of us if you're like, oh my God, my follower count is going up and down. And it's going to go down for up and down for everyone. It goes up and down for me. I lose followers every single day. That's totally normal. My views also fluctuate by the day. Totally, again, totally normal. So for me, I try to do it either at the end of the week or at least once a month. So I'll go through, I'll look at my analytics and I'll search by my posts, and then I'll search by the most viewed or the most engaged, and I'll look at all of those from there. I also look at my posts to see which ones have had the most non-follower reach, and I will see the ones that have the most follower reach. And then depending on the season that I am in business, so maybe I'm in a growth season, then I would just create more of those videos that did really well with a non-follower reach. And if am I in a season of nurturing or selling something, then I'm really going to want to be focusing more on those reels that seem to have more of a reach within my own followers. So those are the biggest ones that I look at. I'll do the same thing for stories. I will scroll through, I'll look at all of my stories, and then I'll look at the ones that have done the best and kind of analyze why I think this has done the best. Was it a story that I've told? Was it an interactive feature? And for all of this type of content, I just try to analyze it, why I think it has done really well, look at kind of the comments people have mentioned, and then just taking note, I'll save that into a folder, my reels that have done really well within my community and the non-follower reach. And then I'll think of ways that maybe I can recreate those or incorporate those aspects that those have had into my newer content that I'm creating for the next month.
How do you look at your community when it comes to not just engaging with them, but fostering this like community feeling? Because oftentimes, like Instagram can be very one-sided. As a creator, you share content, people consume it, they can comment on it. But it seems also that on your profile, you've actually made quite a good connection with the people there. So, what's your approach to actually making your followers feel more like a community? And yeah, what do you do to foster that sense throughout your audience?
So I think one of the biggest things that I do, I always answer every single one of my comments and pretty much every single one of my DMs. So I'm always thinking, okay, if my community is giving to me, I want to give back to them. So the least that I can do is respond to their comment and let them know, like, hi, I'm here. I'm a real person. I'm responding to you. If they're saying something more personal, obviously responding back to that. Same thing in the DMs if they have a question about something or if they need a link to something. Like I'm always trying to make sure that I am available in that way to my own extent. Obviously, we all need to have our own boundaries when it comes to that. You can't be answering comments and DMs for hours and hours and hours. I do this thing on Fridays, and it depends on how busy I am throughout the week, where I call it Fam Love Friday. So I always call my community a community or like my family. And I think even just saying that, some people name their community as well. So I actually have a offline community myself called the Travel Boss Membership. So they're the bosses in there. So you can name your community, and that really makes people feel like, okay, you're actually a part of something. So on Fridays, I'll have like Fam Love Friday, and I'll say tap the emoji if you want some love on your posts. So that's a really great way for me to, because I don't, a lot of us don't see our the people that we follow or the people that follow us anymore. We're getting a lot of, suggested posts from Instagram. So our feed is just like constantly filled up. So it's a great way for me to like see, who's following me, who's interacting with me, and then me giving love back to them. I also try to share my own personal stories and be vulnerable in a way that, works best for me. I know not everybody, it's not always easy for everyone. But if I can be vulnerable, that allows my community to be vulnerable. And I see, any type of those kinds of posts where people are sharing their own stories, I see in the comments, people are interacting with each other and they're commenting, yes, I totally agree with this. I had one post that I did with like things that I was struggling with that maybe you don't always see on social media. And I had, a ton of engagement on that and a lot of people saying like, yes, I'm definitely struggling with this. And then, them coming up with different ways. Like they'll be like, oh, I was struggling with this too. Here's a book that I read that I would recommend that really helped me with this. And so I think really sharing that like authentic side of you and that vulnerable side of you whenever you can, or just sharing your story and sharing more about yourself is also really going to foster that own community. I also try to do like little reels and stuff like that. That's like, hey, like, if you're like a new creator, ask a question. And then if you're an older creator, you can comment on that, or I will comment back on that. So really like emphasizing that, we're kind of all in this together. I feel like that's kind of how I like to look at it.
I mean, you can definitely feel that you're very transparent and that you share your own personal story. So I mean, I also personally could sense kind of the connection it builds as a viewer. Um, how do you actually balance the storytelling of your personal brand of being vulnerable in your posts and stories with also um, any other type of content? How do you make sure it kind of showcases who you are as a real person, but still has this or bridges this gap between who you create as a persona, I suppose, as a content creator?
Yeah, I think there definitely does have to be a balance there. It can't all be like just about you and your story. So I always like come back to content pillars. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about this. If you haven't, there's different content pillars that you can think about. And I always try to incorporate them at least like once a month or once a week and kind of realizing, okay, like that reel yesterday was more inspirational. It was about my story and how I overcame something. So maybe tomorrow we can make it a little bit lighter. It can just be something that's a little bit more entertaining for my audience. So it's inspirational, educational. I'm trying to think of all the other ones. I can type it out in the chat. But so there's 4 different content pillars, and you want to think about all of those different ways that you can showcase your audience and also think about the ways that you are trying to what phase you are in your content creation journey. So obviously if there's going to be things that are a little bit more like relatable or entertaining, maybe those are going to be the ones that are going to have a lot of reach, but those people might not be the ones that are going to connect with you. They might just really enjoy your content, but they're not really connecting you in any way. So those might not be the people that are going to be following you. Maybe some people are going to be following you from those. Oh, and I just had a little thought on the last question, or one of the last questions that you asked about the analytics. I also like to look at my content and see the follower account on the reels. I'm not sure if everybody has access to this, but you can go to the analytics in specific reels and you can see the follower account on those. And it's actually super, super eye-opening because I've had reels with millions of views and that have only had like 10 followers. And then I've had reels that have had like 20,000 views and have had 2,000 followers. So it's really interesting to see that kind of side of it as well. So I personally always try to do a little bit of a mix of, inspirational, educational, relatable, and just entertaining. So I try to give a lot of value. I try to share, my personal story and my journey. And then I also just like to have fun with my content and just, kind of share something that's a little bit more random. But I think it's nice to have that mix for sure.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're also, it's like your main activity. Like if you don't enjoy it, then it also doesn't make sense. I
Mm-hmm.
want to touch upon something that we kind of already spoke a bit about. So we talked a bit about the different types of content you can create on Instagram, how you balance that, how you balance your personal stories, your just general storytelling. You've also touched upon using, for instance, trending audio. But what about like more general Instagram trends? I feel like even week to week, there are new trends popping up, but people tend to just jump on the train and either create the same thing or try to just like get as much value out of something that's already working for somebody else. At the same time, there are trends that kind of also alter what type of content is being preferred. We saw, I mean, during COVID, there were a lot of dancey videos. Now there are less. There is different type of content that's being kind of preferred. And so, how do you kind of deal with following those trends? Do you pay attention to those, or do you kind of stay focused on what you want to create and make sure that it's kind of your own version of what you want to show the world?
I definitely do a bit of a mix. If I see a trend that I see and I'm like, oh, this is really great, this is really funny, but I don't have an idea of how I would incorporate that myself, I'm not going to feel pressured to have to do it. But if I do see a trend and I'm like, oh, that's great, that's really funny, I know exactly how I'm going to incorporate this into my own content, into my own niche so that it makes sense for me, then I'll absolutely jump on the ball for that. And I'll try to jump on it early. So even if I've had 5 reels created for that week, but there's a trend and I see, I'm like, okay, not a ton of people have already done this. Like, I will go through, I'll create that video and I'll post that as quickly as I can if you have the time. Because I think some trends, like sometimes they just get way too much and you're just like, I'm annoyed at this point. But it is really nice when it's in that early phase and in that middle phase where people are still enjoying it, because if it's something that is a trend and your audience has seen it before, then it's going to be a little bit more familiar and they'll kind of know what's coming in that content and they're going to want to watch. Like, I've had some trending audios before. Well, there'll be like music playing and then there's something that drops and then maybe you're showing this gorgeous location or you're sharing a really juicy tip. So if they've heard that audio before or they've heard that trend before, they kind of know what's coming. So they know that they need to watch it through until that like music drops and then they get the really, really good value in there. So I definitely try to do a mix with that, but all of my reels, whether they're trending or, you know, what's going on, like, for example, there's all those trends right now with the kind of like memes. So there'll be like a guy dancing, or there'll be a little cat, or you know, a kid or something like that. I personally, I like those. I think those are funny, but I have just not felt like they were my kind of content. So I haven't incorporated any of those into my own content. So you just have to practice discernment in that way. But when I'm creating a reel, I always try to still think of hooks, whether it's trending or not. So there's always like 4 hooks that I'm thinking of. So the visual hook, so having something that's either really gorgeous or really different, or even just like your face, making a face. You know, we've seen all of those where people are like, oh my God, like, and those are kind of things that they're gonna grab you because you're a little bit different. You're like, what is it? What did they see? Oh my gosh. So having the visual hook, having the hook within the caption, so something that's really good to draw people's attention. Like, I had no idea that when you went to Japan you could do this, and then people are like, you can do what? Oh my God, what is it? What is it? And then you can do an audio hook as well, so either your own voice or those, you know, audios or audio that you have found on Instagram that's a little bit more enticing. And then the first line of my reel, I always try to incorporate that into like some type of hook on the first line, because that's the only thing that people see when they're scrolling the reels tab. So you also want to draw people in that first line as well. So I always try to incorporate those, but trends, I just practice discernment for myself. And if I can make it work, then I try to make it work as quickly as I can.
Are there any future trends that you foresee about, especially like how content creators might develop, and especially for Instagram? Are there any trends that you think that creators can kind of maybe even prepare for? Do you have any foresight, anything you could share?
From what I've seen, Instagram takes a lot of inspiration from TikTok. So, whatever is working on TikTok, you will probably see that stream into Instagram at some point. So, definitely that more of like that personal, relatable content, a little bit less curated, a little bit less forced. I think that's going to be really, really important, especially for these coming years, is having that connection with your audience. That's what people are going to want to see. So definitely keeping up, if you want to keep up with the trends of TikTok and whatever is kind of filtering into there, you can absolutely do that. So especially now with AI, and there's like photos that can just be AI generated, and there's these AI models and there's these AI people. Everyone's going to be a little bit more iffy on like, okay, is this person actually real? Are they actually taking these photos? Are they doing this? So definitely having that video content that it feels really, really authentic, I think is going to be the way that social media is going to go, especially in this AI generation that we are in. So being as authentic and real as you can, and just having a lot of fun with your content. I think at the end of the day, like you just really want to make sure that you're having a good time with it. Even if it's not trending, or even if you've never seen anybody do it, like always experiment, always have a good time with your content.
That's a great point. I mean, people connect with people, and especially now that we almost cannot recognize what's AI and not,
I
I could totally get the sense of you want to feel like the person is even more reachable. I would love to read some of the chat questions
know.
that are popping in. So we have Lovelina and Asim that are asking, I haven't found an answer to this yet, but would love if you could shed some light on this. I initially had a private account on Instagram that I recently switched to a public one. Since then, I have noticed my views drastically reducing from what I received during my private account days. Do you think switching from private to public account hampers growth from some reason?
So I think you're always going to have to play with it yourself. It's going to be a little bit different for everyone. I think if you had a private account, you have to think about, why did you have that private account? It probably wasn't like, if it's private, you're not looking to grow your account. If you're looking to grow your account, obviously it has to be a public account and preferably a creator account. So you can choose from private, business, and creator. I would always recommend the creator account because you get access to the most features, you get access to the most audios. So I would say, think of it yourself as to, why do you think that you went public with it? Is it because you are now trying to grow an account? And are you posting things that now people that you had previously that were private are not connecting with it? So maybe it's not showing those to them as much because they're not engaging with that as much. So is your content changing? Is your process changing? If it is, if it's changing a lot and you're having a whole new vision and idea for your account, it might be more beneficial for you to just start from scratch with with an account that is public from the start, a creator account from the start, and posting consistently on there the kind of things that you are looking to create, the kind of audience that you are looking to bring to your account. So I would play around with it for at least 3 months. If you see that it is not working, or if it's been more than 3 months, I would look into just creating it from, a fresh start. It's never a bad thing.
Thank you. So the next question is like, how do you work with posting in different time zones when you travel? Do the time zones switch automatically? And do posting times really matter?
So I would say the most important thing is that you want to post when it is best for you. So I was posting at 9 a.m. for like a year and a half, and I realized I didn't really like, having to wake up, only having maybe an hour or so, maybe having to create that reel if I hadn't created it previously, writing the caption or doing the last minute editing, and then having to post it. So I actually changed my posting time to noon, and that has worked really, really well for me because I have, I can have my morning routine. I can do all of my little admin work. I can create my reel, or, write a caption or do a little bit of the last minute editing. And then I can post it and I have time to engage, usually during like my lunch time, or, I still try to have a little bit of a set schedule in there where I'll be eating and then I can engage with my community. I try to engage, for at least like 15 minutes or so after I have posted, if people that are commenting or asking questions or anything like that. So I would say it's definitely best what works for you. You can absolutely look at the times. Instagram does give you a times of when your audience is most active, but a lot of the times it's gonna be similar for a lot of people, and not everybody is going to be included in that because not everybody has the feature on where it allows Instagram to show if they are, active at a certain time. So I would say definitely the time that works best for you and the time that you can do it consistently. For me, it's going to be 12 Eastern time, and I will keep that as much as I can depending on where I am. So say that I'm going to be in Europe, like I will now post in Europe at 6 p.m. So then it's going to be Eastern time, my general time when I would be posting because a lot of my audience is in the US. So I'm posting, that's what 9 a.m. on the West Coast. And then in Central Time, it will be like 11 and then it's 12. So a lot of those people are up and awake and probably on social media generally during that time. So it has worked really, really well for me, but you have to make sure that it's a time that really works best for you. But I don't change the posting time. I still have it. Like if I'm in Europe, I will post still for 12 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast.
There's a really interesting question from Elisaveta. She got a lot of followers from India, even though she's located in Europe,
Mm.
and her content is about Europe, so nothing connected to India. And when she is trying to monetize, she cannot really sell to that audience. They don't seem to be on the profile because they love traveling, so it's a bit kind of random. So she's asking whether she should delete those followers or leave it as is. What would you do in that case?
I would work with it for as long as possible. If you're seeing a really huge decrease in engagement or in reach or anything like that, then it could impact your account. And if it's like one of the main demographics of your account, because obviously if you're going to be in Europe, you want to work with European brands, European companies, or US companies or something like that. You're going to have those audience. If you show them your analytics and most of it is going to be in India, maybe that's not going to be look as best. But I would try for, again, at least 3 months. I feel like people try to do like this 30-day reels challenge. I feel like at least 90 days for anything. If you can just keep going for 90 days and then see where you're at, if your engagement has not improved, if your following account has not increased for Europe, I would try to use location tags as much as you can because hopefully it's going to push it out to your more European audience. So I would definitely try to balance that. If not, you can definitely go through and remove those followers. It's going to be a process because you have to do it manually. It's going to be really hard for you to kind of like search. You can't really search through demographic. You can hire a company that could potentially do that. But I'm not sure exactly what level of follower you're at. But if nothing seems to be really be working, you can create a new account and then just collaborate from your old account onto your new account so that you can start building up a new audience there. It is really unfortunate when that happens, but I feel like there's definitely a way to push through it. So I would take at least 3 months to try to build up your European audience more.
Um, there's a question about pivoting from posting about solo travel to helping creators grow and monetize, which is something you've done as well. So a member would really love to know, like, how did you go about it? What's it like to diversify? Because they also would love to post different things. Um, but the question is more does it make sense how to keep momentum and how to fight or how to kind of notice and pull back if it feels like a losing battle?
So I pivoted because my community was asking for it. And I think that's super, super important. So if you're unsure if that's what your community wants, definitely make sure you're asking them. And I'm asking them constantly. I did a poll just about like a month or so ago, and I was asking, do they just solely want creator tips and tricks in education. Do you just want that side? And people were like, no, we want to see your own travels. We want to see what you're up to and what you're doing. So that gave me a lot of insight and just a lot of clarity on what my audience wants. So when I started growing, when I started monetizing, I stopped having a lot of people in my DMs asking me about solo traveling and asking me for tips and tricks and places to go. And I was having so many more people asking me about growing, their accounts and having multiple accounts and making money. So that's when I really decided to pivot in that way. And I would just test it out a little bit. I would have my kind of normal content, and then maybe once or twice a week, I would throw in some more of those videos. I would see how they would do. And then I just kind of increased it from there. So now I'm a bit 50-50 of, that content creator education side of it, and then my own, personal travels and travel side of it. And that has been a really great mix for me. But again, I have asked my community probably 5 times at this point, what they're looking for. And I've really found my own content pillars from there, from the advice that they have given me and the feedback they have given me. And you can really only get to that point if, you have built that solid community. So yeah, definitely ask them and make sure that's something that they're looking for, because it might be a little bit hard to pivot if that's not something that they're interested in.
Since we're reaching the end, creator has a very good question. I think that uh, feels quite right to wrap this up with. The question is, how do you educate yourself on things that are popping up? What do you use to learn and to expand your knowledge, not only towards like how the tooling works, but also as a creator yourself? So where do you go to access additional education? How do you improve your skill? How do you make sure that you um, are informed about everything that's necessary for you to grow?
There's a lot of different ways that I do this. For social media in general, I follow a few people that keep updated accounts. So Maya Nicole, she has been my business coach for a little while. I follow her. And then Brock Johnson. I feel like they're probably more US creator based, but I really like following them for kind of the new things that are happening on Instagram. But then other than that, I would say joining communities. You definitely want to have community where people are, asking questions, getting feedback from one another so you don't feel alone and you kind of get those updates. Conferences have been so amazing for me. So that's a really great way for you to network and for you to really, have those connections with people that are in your community and really learn from them and learn what's going on. So I always try to go to creator conferences as much as I can. I usually speak at them, which is really fun. Obviously having communities like the Get Your Guide community is so amazing. And then I also really like going on retreats. So it's really fun for me because you're learning a lot about content creation, you're learning about business, but then it's a retreat. So you're also traveling, you're going somewhere usually fun and unique and having a really great time and even building those connections even further. So I would say any type of educational, I have spent so much on education. I will be honest about it. Like I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on mentors and on conferences, and I have never been upset about doing any of that. So even if it's a little bit outside of your budget, maybe just joining a $25 masterclass in the beginning, or, and then just increasing it a little bit more from there according to what you want. But obviously, there's so many free resources on social media, on YouTube, on podcasts. So you can absolutely search for those things as well. But just having some type of community and support system has been just priceless to me. So that's how I do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emilie, for
Yeah.
sharing all of this with us. I hope that for everybody else was as valuable and interesting as it was for me. I feel like the hour session went by in like 5 minutes. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining in. I really appreciate you all being here. I'm gonna share the recording, so if you want to still kind of watch it after, I know some people were asking in the chat about like what was that? What was? Can you repeat? So not to worry, you'll get the video, so you'll be able to kind of watch it back. And yeah, thank you so much for being there, all of you. After the session or this webinar ends, you'll get a really quick survey, so please share your feedback with us. This is the first time we're doing like a Q&A session, an interview session. So we would love to know whether you like it or not, so we know if we should continue them or not. So yeah, let us know there. And yeah, thanks again, Emilie. Thanks everybody for
Yay.
being here.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And if I didn't get to your questions, please shoot me a DM on Instagram, Emilie Eats and Explores, and I will answer them on there. So thank you guys so much for joining.